Welcome one and welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape, volume 177. He is Brandon Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation. I am RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys. BLG, happy hump day, my friend.
Who is your favorite Cowboys player to wear number 77?
Tyron
Is
Smith.
that obvious? Who is it?
Tyron Smith.
Man, I kind of forgot he even wore that.
There was actually a long debate as to whether or not he was a better seven. I'm not a Mavericks fan, but a better 77 for DFW than Luka Doncic. So that was a big thing for a while. Not anymore, but yeah, it was for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I think Tyron Smith was more important.
What were you gonna say? What was your joke answer gonna be, or what?
No, I didn't have anything.
Who's your favorite Eagle to wear 28?
Well, I went 77 because of the episode number.
Well, you could have gone 17 because it's 177.
Yeah, but we're going.
Jason Garrett wore 17.
Okay, it's not him.
So did Kellen Moore.
Slim Pickens at 77 for the Eagles here. Mekhi Becton last year.
What about 28? I threw out 28 as an example.
Will Shipley is 28 right now. With all due respect. Bill Bradley was 28. Not a great number for the Eagles either.
There's one number in the NFL that when I think of, I only think of an Eagles player. I don't know if you have that for the Cowboys. Like if there's
who is it?
It's Brian Westbrook.
I'm surprised you didn't say Brian Dawkins, number 20.
No, not a really even like average safety, but like there's only 130. I couldn't even tell you anybody who wore 36 at any point for any team ever, but I can certainly think of Brian Westbrook.
Yeah, it's not a great. I mean, it's funny though too because they haven't retired that one, which is fine. I'm not saying you rise to the level, but they also weren't slow to hand it out, I think, either. So it's kind of just been weird over the years to see other players who've had that, and they're usually like bottom of the roster defensive guys.
Similarly synonymous number, although this he did play for the Eagles, but Darren Sproles. Like you don't think of anybody else with 43. You know what I'm saying?
An all-time like great player for relative to especially like a not great number. But I feel like that number somehow just works, especially for the kind of player he is, like a pass-catching running back, kind of a unique player from a size standpoint. Anyway, really good jersey number talk at the top of the podcast.
Great call from, I think maybe Kale Wilson says Troy Polamalu at 43. That's a way more iconic 43. But so well said. Played for the Steelers, who are neighbors with the Eagles. I don't know if you knew this, but once upon a time, the Steelers and Eagles used to be one team. Called them the Steagles, which is better than the Ealers. That was the other way they could have gone about it, but they didn't. So
I'm looking at a player here who all the number 36s in Eagles history, and there's a guy named Eggs Mansky from the 1930s. His name is Eggs, but I think his full name is Edgar, but he went by
the 1930s.
Eggs.
That's when Eagles fans used to like claim their only significance from prior to Howie Roseman turning them into a monster. All right, it is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. Happy birthday to my cousin Jeremy, and to anybody else who was born today, for that matter. Brandon, it is week 12. It is Cowboys Eagles week for the second time this season, outside of the season opener, obviously. So a little bit more normal of a feel for a Cowboys Eagles week. We have some special stuff that we're working on with regards to Cowboys Eagles week, if you want to get into that, and then we'll get into the episode.
Yeah, check out bloggingtheboys.com and bleedinggreennation.com, especially. I mean, always do that, obviously, at all times, but especially this week. Let's say if you haven't done that for some reason before, I would wager there are people who listen to the podcast who don't always necessarily check out the site. Then this is especially a reason to do so because we're going to be doing some, what do you want to call it, like cross-play this week, where we each go into each other's site. I have access to bloggingtheboys.com. RJ has access to bleedinggreennation.com and post different kind of articles, which will be dropping later today, I believe, as we're recording this. Wednesday, November 19th.
Streaming, not recording.
Streaming.
Proper parlance.
And you will be able to see, and then really the fun part where you guys come in, honestly, because, RJ and I are doing the work here, but the cool, actually fun part for the people watching, listening, and then therefore commenting on the site is you go over to the site and then you can interact with either RJ at Bleeding Green Nation or me at bloggingtheboys.com. So help us out and make us look good to our bosses and participate in all of that.
That's true. Yeah. And then make the comments. Your bosses are awesome. You're awesome. Just something like that. That would be really nice. Okay. So for anyone who's new around here,
another noteworthy feature here we should mention is that I forgot to mention this big deal, RJ. Notifications now live on if you're signed into an account, and it's free. Sign up for an account at Blogging the Boys, at bleedinggreennation.com. Log in. First of all, you see fewer ads than you would if you're not logged in, so it's just a no-brainer to do that. And then if you leave a comment, or make a feed post, you'll start to see notifications pop up if people are replying to you or posting in your feed post. So that's just kind of a nice way to be able to keep the conversation going.
Just to add a little bit to that, because these are our jobs and to make our bosses happy, that is true regardless of what team you root for. So if you peruse an SB Nation community, if you're a Cowboys or an Eagles fan, but you root for the Mavericks or the Sixers or I don't know, the Lakers or whatever, like whatever team, that's literally what we are at SB
the
Nation.
Lakers?
Because I brought up Luka Doncic a moment ago.
Because Cowboys fans root for the Lakers too.
Yeah, says the Chelsea FC supporter. We do have a Chelsea FC blog though.
Entirely different.
No, you're just a complete and total hypocrite.
Oh yeah, so I don't root for the American
so
Premier
whatever
League team
you root for, regardless of what sport it is, we have a blog dedicated to it at SB Nation, and you can be browsing any site, even if it's of a team you don't like, and you will get access to all of your notifications. So if you make a comment at Blogging the Boys or Bleeding Green Nation, but you're surfing the SB Nation universe somewhere else, you will get notified when somebody replies to you, like Brandon said. Create an account. It is free. Very simple stuff. And like BLG said, you are actually exposed to fewer ads when you have an account. So it does make a lot of sense in that regard. So lots of fun stuff coming to the .com experience at SB Nation. But for anyone who doesn't know, because again, people find this different ways, you can utilize the whole universe. A lot of people tend to, if they're Cowboys fans, go to Bleeding Green Nation this week, annually, just to kind of see what the discussion and whatever is, and vice versa. And that's why BLG and I are leaning into that. I'm going to be writing some stuff there. He's going to be writing some stuff over here. So that's that. Eagles Girl 52 says it's like when late night hosts would switch shows. LOL. It's a great example. I kind of thought of it like when Grey's Anatomy and Private Practice would have like a big episode. You know what I'm saying? Like it would be like one long episode between the two. So whichever analogy you like better, audience, that's up to you. Also, we are streaming this as we did last time for the first time, both horizontally, if you can show us that, Brandon, horizontally and vertically. So it's up to you which way you want to consume this product. But either way, please subscribe to the Bleeding Green Nation or Blog on the Boys YouTube channels, whichever strikes your fancy. BLG, as we always do, we discuss the state of the division and division standing. The Philadelphia Eagles are inevitably this season going to win the NFC East in all likelihood. They are 8-2 as a result of their 16-9 win on Sunday Night Football, a game that made me question why I like this sport to begin with, because it was so boring and dull. But a win is a win is a win is a win, as our friend Rob Stats Guerrero likes to say, and the Eagles picked up another one.
The magic number for the Eagles to win the division is down to 4. Magic number, for those not familiar, I guess with its more popular use in baseball, the combined number of Eagles wins plus second place losses. And I say second place instead of Cowboys because I think somehow technically the Commanders could still win. Very unlikely, obviously. But just to be technical about it, that is where the Eagles sit right here. It's like a 99% chance, I think, on like Football Outsiders, DVOA. So obviously incredibly likely, not impossible, that they could blow it. They famously blew it in 2023. I don't know if they had odds just as this good. But anyway, the Eagles do win. They are 8-2. They are in control of their path to the number 1 seed overall simply by winning out. Obviously, they're probably not going to win all 7 remaining of their games, but if they did, they would be the number 1 seed. And they have valuable head-to-head tiebreakers over now the Lions and previously the Rams, Buccaneers, Packers. One probably,
if it comes down to it.
Probably doesn't matter because of the tie, but in the event that the Eagles tie, sure, that's valuable to have. So it is, and speaking of those teams and looking at what the Eagles have accomplished this year, from a very, like, you zoom out, it's hard not to be impressed. You beat the Chiefs, you beat all those teams I just mentioned. Like, it's they've checked a lot of boxes, and yet there's something to get to. First, I need to start with the positive. The defense looked awesome against the Lions. They were so dominant. Probably helped that it was windy outside, just as that hurt the offense. Even so, Jared Goff was leading the league in completion percentage this year heading into Sunday night, and only behind Drew Brees in a couple of his seasons in the past in terms of all-time completion percentage. And the Eagles held him to like 38.7, I believe, 37.8, something like that, completion percentage. Like, that's crazy to go and just shut him down to the extent that they did. And it's not fluky. I mean, I think this Eagles defense is legitimately awesome, which it didn't look that way earlier in the season, but they added Jalen Phillips. Kobe Dean is back from IR. Jalen Carter, look, I think that's kind of more like under discussed in terms of like national things. Like, everyone's like, oh, Eagles trade for Jalen Phillips. What a great trade. That sparked the defense. It has. I think Jalen Carter getting healthy, because he wasn't fully looking like himself earlier in the season prior to the bye week. That is a massive deal for this team. I think the defense, I totally believe in that unit. They have talent. They have a great coordinator in Vic Fangio. That unit, I truly believe, is so good that even if the offense doesn't figure it out, it's not impossible that they could win on the strength of their defense. I don't think that's a great formula. I don't think that's likely, but I do think it is like possible. There's a non-zero chance that, and that's just a testament to how good this defense is. Let's stop down there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Not anything that disagrees with you, but I do want to say a few things before we lose some comments, just to pay some respects. First of all, your dad checked in, said, hi, guys, just popping on to say hi. Mom and I will watch tonight, and said we never miss the NFC East mixtape. Your dad's one of the only people who always appropriately calls it the NFC East mixtape. We do get NFC mixtape a lot. I wanted to say that because I don't know if I told you this. My parents have been watching Breaking Bad for the first time ever. And so I told him, I said, I want to watch the finale with you, like, when you get to that point. And that's going to be later tonight, after Survivor and stuff. I'm going to head over to their house and watch the finale of Breaking Bad with them. So I'm pretty excited. So basically, our parents are watching equally great things tonight. Your parents, the NFC's mixtape. My parents, the Breaking Bad series finale. And then I did just want to ask a question that Bill offered to you, which again is in line with the magic number thing. And then I'll offer some thoughts here as to whether or not, if the Eagles beat the Cowboys, is their magic number down to 2?
Yes, I believe so. Yes. Because that's one Eagles win and one Cowboys loss together.
I don't think we see this across the NFL with offensive coordinators, but there is, like, every now and then the defensive coordinator who just wasn't a great head coach that, like, lands with the team and is just like the head coach of the defense, and it's this perfect marriage. I think Wade Phillips is like the example. That's clearly Vic Fangio. I don't mean to say or imply the Eagles defense isn't ripe with talent, because it certainly is. And the Jalen Phillips trade looks great. I mean, what a shocker. Howie Roseman's awesome, blah, blah, blah. But I would offer that if Vic Fangio left, like, hypothetically, it would look like a disaster next year. And again, I'm not saying that the talent isn't there, but it's just, everything works in perfect harmony right there. And it's amazing because it was kind of predictable. When it didn't work out for him in Miami, it was like, whoever scoops this dude up, it's going to be the perfect combination of all elements. And it just so happened that it was Philadelphia.
To this point, the Eagles have the least expensive defense in the NFL in terms of like cash spending committed to this defense. So like, they really shouldn't be as good as they are in terms of that, in terms of they're the youngest defense in the NFL. Like, there's reason for this defense to not look as good as it is. And yet, when you have really good coaching, I think that's what happens. And the talent's there, and they're going to be more expensive in the future because they have a lot of guys to pay. So that number isn't like truly indicative. But for right now, it speaks to the fact that they have not. It's not like this is who we're going to be. We're going to be this awesome defensive team, and this is how we're going to build the team. That's not how they've built the roster necessarily. And yet they are so good. And I bring that up to say the inverse is true of the offense, where you do not feel like the coaching is at that level. And the Eagles are the number 1 team in the NFL in terms of cash spending on offense. And the difference between the Eagles and second place is the difference between second and 7th place. So it is like a massive difference in terms of how much they are head and shoulders above everyone else in spending. And yet this offense is just so... The way Johnny Page, who does our film breakdowns at bleedinggreennation.com, which I would recommend people check out this week, described it with 3 adjectives. He described it here as repetitive, stale, and joyless. And it is not hard to disagree with that assessment. It is, in fact, quite impossible to disagree with that assessment. The Eagles have now scored just 26 points coming out of the bye over the last 2 games. I gave them some grace with that against the Packers, because the Packers have a really good defense anchored by Micah Parsons.
It was super cold, and like you could dress it up in different ways. Yeah. And
you can even say, okay, there's wind, as I just said in the Lions game. So, okay, maybe they're not going out and scoring 40. Sure. And the Lions have statistically a good defense, although I should note, like, they're missing a ton of players, including 3 of their 4 starters in the secondary. And not only 3 of the 4 starters, but like some of their top backups behind those starters as well. So there's no reason for them to score as few points as they did in that game. Even all those things being said, there's a big talking point in Philly that it's like, well, it doesn't matter because they just win. And it's like, man, it's hard to disagree from a standpoint of what they prioritize, brawl protection and everything. Like, yes, it works, but does it really need to look this hard? Does it need to feel this hard? Can you do some other things? Can you make some tweaks where you're not turning the ball over massively, and yet you're still much more competent on offense than you are? And I have to believe that's the case. I don't think you have to be this terrible to get the benefit of not turning the ball over. And here's my big thing with the formula and my question with, it's not unsustainable from the standpoint of, yes, we've seen the Eagles win the Super Bowl. And again, I keep using the word disqualifying. I don't think anything what the Eagles do is disqualifying, but I do think they're playing with fire. And the fact that they are 6-1 in 1-score games this year, like, at some level, that's a sign of you know how to win. At some level, that's just luck. You see it all the time. We talk about 1-score record all the time. The Chiefs dominated 1-score games last year. What happened in the Super Bowl? They got destroyed. What happened this year? They're 0-5 in 1-score games this year. Regression is going to be coming for this team. Maybe it's not this year. Maybe they win another Super Bowl. Maybe it's next year they get hit with that. And obviously you'll live with that, at least in this point in time. But I just really think they could be better and not have to operate this way.
The Chiefs are a great 1-score example. The Vikings from seasons past have been kind of a 1-score merchant team, and I don't know that this season is like the ramifications of that, but the Commanders we've talked about a million times, and not even just the 1-scoreness, but their success on 4th down last year. It's just another example of, like, when you are doing something at like 1,000% success rate, that is just not going to hold true for long. It may, like, to your point, you may win the Super Bowl doing it, but like it is, and that, I don't think anyone would say that wasn't worth it or whatever. That's not the point. But it's not, results don't justify the process, which is something we also say a lot. I would offer, and I don't mean this in a totality sense, and I don't mean to diminish the Eagles. I think I've got a pretty solid track record of not doing that, but things have seemed to me as an outsider this way since the collapse in 2023. Obviously, there were some larger peaks in 2024, particularly in the playoffs, and that Rams game and the Super Bowl itself. Like, that's not to say that there haven't been great offensive performances from the Eagles since then, but ever since the 2022 consistency wore off offensively, it has just seemed like it seems like they just wait for the other team to like roll over and die, and when they do, like, it's like, fine, I guess we'll score. If you really are just going to get out of our way, we'll do it. I mean, they just do not seem to like care. And I know these are different words than what you're offering and what the adjectives you describe, but like, I think it's strange that AJ Brown's, I don't mean to say the word behavior and cast him or paint him in a negative light, but for lack of a better word, behavior is so objectively negative. We all completely agree that it is detrimental to the cause of his team. But I don't think there's a single person, whether you're an Eagles fan or not, who's like, he's completely wrong. I think everybody's looking at what he's saying as like, yeah, he's totally right. Like, there's zero doubt about what he's saying. And it seems similar. Again, I give you my word and the entire audience my word that this is not even like manifesting anything bad for the Eagles. But it seems similar to the Carson Wentz downfall. It's just very strange how everyone is talking about and around, not even around, actually just straight up about how bad the quarterback is. It's a very, and I'm not even saying that all of this is Jalen Hurts' fault. I don't know if the offense is designed to try to mask or minimize his weaknesses so that it doesn't become a talking point, but it is one of the worst offenses in the entire NFL. Everything else just happens to carry it, and it does come alive at the most coincidental moments in time that just make for the proper combination and sequence of events for them to keep winning these games.
And they don't turn the ball over. Like, that's the big thing. Like, and when you don't do that, there's a lot of value in that. But I don't think it's literally the only thing that matters at all. And again, it's not mutually exclusive. Like, that's what frustrates me the most right now. It's like, well, they have to play this way because it works for them and they win. It's like, okay, they could play generally in this kind of style where they still do some things better. For example, just this is kind of an in the weeds adjustment in terms of what we talk about here, but like Grant Calcaterra is the Eagles' second tight end. He is terrible at blocking. Everyone knows this. And yet against the Lions, they run a ton of 12 personnel and are like asking him to block a ton. It's like, that's not setting up a player for success. And also like, you don't need to do that to avoid turnovers like that. Like something like that is just very dumb. So there's absolutely things where I think it's impossible to argue that this coaching staff has like a lemon in their hands and they're squeezing every bit of juice out of what they have in that lemon. Like, I think you cannot say that at all. At the same time, I think there are things that absolutely Jalen Hurts is responsible for, and he could be a lot better. So it really is a more than one thing can be true situation where I think there's a lot of blame to go around there. And even in this game, like the start of the game, Devontae Smith, who's great, drops a couple passes. Dallas Goedert, like that's not Jalen Hurts at that point in those situations. That doesn't mean he played well all game, but like there's just times it feels like where, okay, it's not syncing up to where everyone's clicking. It's just like, okay, this drive, Jalen Hurts is playing poorly, missing throws. This drive, the offense isn't helping him out at all. And it's all just kind of leading to this ultimate underperforming product where, again, it's silly because it's like, it might not matter. It might not matter, but it doesn't mean that we can't talk about it. And it doesn't mean that fans can't be frustrated about it because you watch the point. Part of the point of watching football is like to have fun. And it's not fun to watch this offense. It's like, it's miserable. They go 3 and out all the time. It's way under where it should be in terms of where you think it could be. And even let's say AJ Brown has fallen off. I see that in the comments here. Some people suggesting that from Adam Exploits. Or, Saquon Barkley, whatever. Even if that's true, you cannot tell me, once again, that like the coaching staff is getting the most out of what they have. Because there's a difference between, no one's saying the Eagles need to be number one offense in the NFL and they need to score 40 points every game. That's not what people are saying. They just like, it can look better than this, and that would be a reasonable expectation.
I think they are getting every drop out of the lemon in some respects, but getting no drops out of the lemon in other respects, which is what's interesting and confounding. And I think that they have very brilliantly over this little run, and that not to use the word little, like to minimize it again, but whatever you want to call the last few years, they have identified a market inefficiency that they have capitalized on. And I think that there are very glaring and specific examples of that, like the tush push or like their aggression early on, again, in, let's just call it the Nick Sirianni time. And I think that they have, they've made the most out of it. I mean, they've been very, very successful. They won a Super Bowl, but I don't mean to say it was a parlor trick, but again, for lack of better words, but like they identified this market inefficiency and that was it. And it was a matter of, we're going to go down this path. And if it works and leads to a Super Bowl, where nobody's going to complain. But it has left them vulnerable in other respects. And that's just what I think is ultimately happening here. They're not capable of doing certain things because they've concentrated so much on doing other things. And how could they not? And especially because again, my perception from 30,000 feet away is they have identified, we got to, be able to not turn the ball over. We got to play these games that are deep into the season at home where it's cold, because I look at the opponent and I think that this sounds like something that somebody who hates on a team says. So like whether you've hated on the Chiefs or the Warriors or whoever, the Astros, blah, blah, blah. You say things like, oh, these teams just make mistakes against them. And that's what happened. Like I said this last week, that I was super pumped to watch the Lions because they were the one team that was going to be smart and cunning against them. And they peed more down their leg than anybody else has against the Eagles. Like this was one of the worst games that Dan Campbell has ever had as the Lions head coach, let alone as their offensive play caller. And it's just frustrating that, again, for whatever market inefficiency the Eagles have been, again, to just use this verbiage here, the Eagles have capitalized on and harnessed and been able to succeed with, teams just can't get out of their own way against them. And you look down and you're in mid-November and you're 8-2, and like, who can be mad about that, to your point?
Yeah, with an incredibly tough schedule, and now a schedule that lightens up relatively the rest of the way. At least, again, based on what it was earlier this season. They get the Cowboys this week, obviously. big game as it relates to the division and the conference still. And then it's the Bears on Black Friday in Philly, the Chargers in LA, but Chargers aren't looking great. The Raiders, who we'll get to here very shortly, who stink out loud, and Chip Kelly's returning to Philly, assuming he's not fired by then. And then Commanders in Washington. Jane Daniels might be shut down for the season by then. Who knows? You play the Bills. That game might not even matter for like either team, honestly. And it's like, okay, the Eagles lose it. It might not even matter from a like AFC standpoint. And then the Commanders again in week 18. So really good spot. And yet no one feels like amazing about the team.
It will be interesting. I agree with Adam's exploits. Adam's getting a lot of pop on this episode, by the way. It says, curious how they look against the Bears. Next couple weeks going to be interesting because this takes us to the Cowboys. Getting the win on Monday Night Football, and obviously we'll get to the Cowboys-Eagles part of it all in a moment. If you're okay putting a bookmark there. I assumed you were. But
yeah.
Well, okay. And again, I also think that this episode, beyond the fact that the Cowboys and Eagles play each other, I don't think we need to devote a ton of time to the Commanders or Giants. You agree?
Just some quick things, yeah, but
okay,
not.
Okay. But let's get to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So they played their first game since a lot of things, but most not importantly, these are all awkward words, and there are no good ones since the tragic death of Marshawn Nealon. It was an emotional night. This game, and I included this in the initial article for Bleeding Green Nation that you talked about. This game on Sunday is going to be their first home game. So they have a few things that are planned from a tribute standpoint. But first game since then, so a lot of emotions for them. First game since the bye, just kind of a generally important thing in any season. First game since the trade deadline, and therefore first game with Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson. A little bit of a stumble early on. You could argue a self-induced one with Brian Schottenheimer's decision, which we can talk about. But then woke up, and the second quarter was awesome. All they did from a possession standpoint in the second and third quarter, although the third quarter was not as large from a quantitative standpoint, was score touchdowns. And this was one of those games that for Brandon and I, we talk about stuff like this a lot, is a dream because in the fourth quarter, you don't have to worry about anything. You can get a jump on some articles and things like that. So that's what it was for me. And given that it was a Monday night and it's a quick turnaround, it was just it was a nice little head start for me. So it did make people feel good. Again, I've been saying for a few weeks, and as I included in the article, not to give it away, I don't think anybody is saying like, watch out, here they come. I think people are saying, okay, if they looked really solid, and if they play that way, down the stretch, and they stack some wins, anything's possible. But it is very exciting with regards to 2026 and 2027. Quinnen Williams was amazing. He had 5 pressures in the first half alone. All of his pressures came in the first half. It was the most pressures recorded in a single half by a Cowboys defensive tackle since Next Gen Stats began tracking this information, which it's only since 2018, and the Cowboys haven't had great defensive tackle play. But that's why the trade is so exciting, because you finally got that dude. And as mentioned, CD looked great, George Pickens looked great, Dak Prescott looked great, Javonte Williams looked great, and Quinnen Williams, as we all expected, was the rising tide that lifted all boats. The defense as a whole looked great. I mean, the Eagles have had great defensive tackle play for forever, which has been our point. Aaron Donald with the Rams. If you knock that first domino over, all of a sudden the Malik Hookers of the world are tasked with far less way back on the back end, and everybody benefits from what you have up front.
Yeah, I've been saying throughout the year that I think like this Dallas Cowboys defense, for as bad as they weren't hopeless, because of the fact that you get Overshown back at some point, you get Revel back at some point. They added Quinnen Williams, Logan Wilson. They also got Malik Hooker back, as you just mentioned. That's 5 players. It's like almost half of the defense you're changing out there. So that's a big deal. So I definitely think even if they're not a great defense the rest of the way, they're not going to be as pathetic
right
defense all season long, which is huge, because it's not even like you need them to be the best defense in the NFL. If you can just be an average-ish defense with an offense that's one of the top offenses in the league, then you're cooking with something at that point. So
polar opposite of the Eagles, as
it really is the opposite situation of just begging for a mediocre offense right now, because that would be an upgrade. But I mean, the Raiders are terrible, so I'm not trying to take credit away from the Cowboys, but they truly are despicable. Like they're just
it's the kind of win you're supposed to have against a despicable
100%. Yeah, the
Cowboys are supposed to kick their ass, and that's what they
100%. Because I have them second to last in my power rankings. They're only above the Titans, which is one of the Raiders' 2 wins this year. I can't believe they beat the Patriots in week 1. So weird. But, I guess that's just like a weird, fluky week 1 thing, because, man, the Patriots look great, and the Raiders very much do not. So Cowboys did what they're supposed to do, coming off a bye, beat up a bad Raiders team. And I think it's like, I don't think it's like the Cowboys are back. I'm not saying you're saying that. I don't think it's quite that. But I do think it's like, okay, they're going to make things a little bit interesting down the stretch. That's not just like they're going to roll over and hand the division to the Eagles.
I don't know about that. I feel that disposition towards one of the wild card spots. Like the division is I don't want to say forfeited.
I'm not saying they're going to win the division. I'm saying
I do think they'll play the Eagles very well. Like if that's what was your point. But I'm saying like I think everyone kind of has surrendered mathematically the division, and so it's a matter of I do think they will make noise is sounds bigger than I mean, but like they will make this fun, and that's at least what you want. You want to do your Christmas shopping with them in the mix, in the hunt graphic. By the way, Kay Adams's graphic on Tuesday had them in the hunt, and I shared it. That got way more pop than I thought it was gonna get. There was so many people who had thoughts on the Cowboys being in the hunt. Breaded
like
Clips
in a way where they're not. You're saying?
Yeah, like there were people who took it very positively, and then there were people that were like, "LOL, why are they here?" So it was like just purely both ends of the spectrum. I just thought it was interesting. Like I didn't share it from the perspective of thinking it was chum in the water, but it wound up being that in multiple senses. But Breaded Clips asked this. We've obviously talked about this a lot at Blog on the Boys, but for you all, the question is, do you know why CD and Pickens weren't on the first drive? By the way, there is no exact known answer. The most able to be deduced sort of thing is that they pissed off Brian Schottenheimer. And obviously you don't do that for good things. My overall takeaway here, if you're curious, and I'm certainly curious for yours, is it a real punishment to bench any player, certainly of their caliber, for the first possession of the game? No. I mean, it's silly. And, it's silly even like in high school to do this, let alone, in the NFL. Doesn't really have an effect. I'm not interested in arguing like, oh, well, you're hurting yourself. Like, what if you don't score points here? Blah, blah, like that's, again, whatever. I do believe it's the largest extent that you can go in that situation. Like it's the most severe thing you can do in that moment. So I don't mean to talk out of both sides of my mouth here. But what I am the most impressed by, I found it kind of silly, to be honest with you, because this was not a story. This was not something that had been reported. This was not something that anybody had any inkling of, but it becomes this massive story because of the fact that they're not on the field and Troy Aikman and Joe Buck are like, what's going on? And all of a sudden it's a thing. So on one hand, I was critical of Brian Schottenheimer for making a story out of something that nobody had any information or knowledge on. But on the other hand, and this is more about the culture of the team that maybe Brian Schottenheimer deserves some credit for, how many things have happened with the Cowboys that, and I know you can't quite answer this, but that we had no idea. Like, that's amazing to me. And that still, here we are 2 days after the game, almost 48 hours after the incident in question, and there is still no, Jerry Jones did intimate that that they were late for a meeting, but still did not even fully confirm anything. But that is an unheard of sort of thing for the Dallas Cowboys. And I recognize how low the bar is here, that I'm, giving them props for clearing, but it is an incredibly rare thing for them to have something that is purely and totally kept in-house. And so in that respect, I have to give Brian Schottenheimer a lot of credit.
I think it helped they were playing the Raiders too, from that standpoint of being able to do that.
Yeah,
I don't think they're doing that against the Eagles if it was this game. Yeah.
I agree with that. And I also don't agree, I don't think anybody does, but that the success they had was because of the lesson learned, right. That I think they just are really good and the Raiders are bad, and it was the right combination of things.
Yeah,
but,
this isn't unheard of. The Eagles did this last year with Jalen Carter early in the season, same kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, Jalen Carter also famously spit on Dak Prescott, so
he did. That was a big detriment to the Eagles defense, I would say.
Yeah, this is not related to Jalen Carter, but I have found it so funny how the insiders have acted and said he was suspended for that game. Like, we can argue about whether he should have been suspended for an additional game. I'm not doing that. But to say he was actually suspended for the game is just literally not true.
That's how the NFL, I know it is very silly because he wasn't, but that's how the NFL has framed it. At the time they announced no suspension for him, they were like, well, he served a retroactive suspension.
That's dumb. I'm just quibbling with the verbiage, because when the Jamar Chase thing happened this past week, I saw Tom Pelissero tweeted. He was like, well, the precedent here is that Jalen Carter was suspended for a game. He wasn't. He wasn't suspended for a game. He was ejected from a game, and then it was deemed that was a sufficient punishment, but he was not suspended for a game. So that was silly. But that being said, and by the way, just while we're here, Brett Eclipse asked which was worse. I cannot believe I'm going to do this. I think Jamar is worse. Without understanding the context of the situations, I still think it's incredibly dumb if Jalen Carter spit on Dak because he thought Dak spit on him or whatever. At the very least, you can kind of argue that in a dumb way, but you can be like, hey, he thought he was spat on, so he spat back. That still is not reason to spit on anybody. But it's hard to know what Jamar's line of thinking was. So,
well, especially because that happened, Carter's happened first. And it's like, all right, now really do not do this. Like, it was like, it was a big warning to everyone else to not do that. And yet he did. So,
anyway, but so the Dak and CD thing, whatever. I'm sorry, the CD Pickens thing, whatever. But Pickens looked incredible. Yep. I mean, just holy crap. There are 15 players since 1970 who have had 900 receiving yards for their first 10 games of their first 10 games, first stint with the franchise. He's the latest one. I mean, he has been. I haven't seen enough. The Steelers are dumb for letting him go takes, but those should be out there. And I was against the trade, to be clear. But
I know
he has been one. And if they don't re-sign him or extend him, I'm going to be so pissed.
That's the thing. And I thought he looked great in this game from a standpoint, especially too, just yards after the catch. And it was like the Raiders were just hoping he would like go down on his own at times because they would just get near him. And it's like, okay, you actually have to tackle him. He's not going to just like run out of bounds or just go down if you're not going to put a real effort into getting him down. But yeah, this is why you and I said at the time, okay, you made the move, great move. But now like either he's your guy, pay him, or why do you even make the move?
I've said this before, but imagine if they had extended him right away. And I've literally said this, but imagine if
in fairness, like to the Cowboys, I guess you could say maybe he didn't want to do it. So if that's the case, I mean, like, okay, but I find it hard to believe that you couldn't put some amount of money on the table that he would.
Had given him an appropriate market rate deal at the time. I agree. I find it hard to believe he would have,
or even overpay at the time, because that would still be a value now.
That has long been my point. I mean, with a lot of these things, I've had a lot of these discussions and shows and whatever. But even if they, to your point, had overpay, we'd be sitting here being like, dude, wow, brilliant. But that is the only thing they have to take care of and an extension from Brandon Aubrey. But you touched on it, actually. I didn't. DeMarvion Overshown playing was awesome. That was, you said Savon Ravel was back. That was actually his NFL debut. He's their third round pick this year.
Back from injury.
Hadn't played. So you're right. They literally are very different. We'll see. I agree that they're no longer negative 100. Even if they're like negative 30 from a quality standpoint, that is still a significant improvement from where they're at. So they're 4-5-1. They still have yet to win consecutive games in a row since weeks 4 and 5 of last year.
Wow.
So they're chasing that on Sunday against the Eagles. I mentioned it. Do we need to talk about the Giants' performance? They almost beat the Packers, which would have been awesome.
Commanders first.
I suppose. I mean, they're the same.
They almost won. I mean, it looked like the Dolphins were kind of going to blow it at the end there, and yet they didn't. So, I mean, I think it just comes down to, and this is what they're talking about on hogshaven.com. You can also check that out, where it's like, oh, should we shut it down for the season? And I mean, yeah. Why is Jaden Daniels? The worst thing that can happen to the Commanders this year is Jaden Daniels, short of like they win out and make the playoffs, obviously. But short of that is Jaden Daniels comes back, they win some games, and then they get a better or worse draft pick, I should say, better record, and then he gets hurt, and then like that injury clouds the 2026 season. So yeah, I would just shut it down.
It was cool to see Madrid. I was actually
and then the Giants.
It was cool. This isn't about the Commanders, and I know everybody said this, but like seeing how awesome the Real Madrid stadium is, like if you're an NFL player, you got to be like, screw these guys. Like, look how possible it is to have something amazing. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, but yeah, the Giants.
On the last thing I'll say about the Commanders, I guess Commanders fans are excited that like the defense looked better because they changed back to Dan Quinn, but like, okay, I think that might just be also the Dolphins aren't great.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins, this is not an AFC East mixtape either, but deserve a little bit of credit, for fighting through. This is why, like, I think the Dolphins, and this is a segue to the Giants, this is why you shouldn't have fired Brian Daboll. Like, Mike McDaniel is, I think we both think not a good head coach, but at least, from a quality standpoint, an NFL head coach. I recognize how silly that is to say when he's going to be fired, very soon. But but like you don't want to be wandering adrift. You like, I think if you're a Dolphins fan right now, you're feeling like, okay, things suck, but like there's some promise for the future. And you're seeing that promise because you have competency running the team. Now the Giants were very close to winning the game that they didn't. And if they had, then we would be able to make that argument for them. And maybe they rip off a couple of wins here, whatever. But the Giants are so lost. Like, it was more entertaining. I think Jameis was the right decision. So good on them in that respect. And I was really rooting for them because it was against the Packers and the draft pick and all that stuff. And obviously hindering the Giants' own draft pick. But just another, dude, they're 2-9. You sent me a stat. I don't know if you want to get to this.
Yeah, I sent you a stat on Tuesday that I kind of couldn't believe. And this comes from at Joe NFL on Joe Ferreria on Twitter, where basically the Giants could be eliminated from playoff contention. It's week 12, right? Like, that's crazy to me. It's especially, we've seen so many bad Giants teams, but to be eliminated in week 12 would be the earliest they've been eliminated since 1976, like 50 years. That's crazy to me that this could happen.
Not quite 50.
Like, essentially, yeah. And so there's the three scenarios where they'd be eliminated are a Giants loss plus a Cowboys win, or a Giants loss plus a Vikings win. And who the Vikings play this week? I did not even look at that just to see the feasibility of that. It is the Packers. So we'll see. You would like that. Or a Giants loss and a Seahawks either win or tie. And the Seahawks this week play the Tennessee Titans. So there's a really good chance then that the Giants are just going to be eliminated. And obviously it's like, oh, they're not going to make the playoffs anyway. But the fact that, like, we're not even at Thanksgiving and you can't, like, the Giants season is just officially over. Like, that's crazy to me. Just how bad they've been this year.
For newer mixtape, mixologists, we used to talk about something. I believe Peter King, this was because when we started the mixtape, he was still doing football morning in America. Was that the name of the column? I think so. And it was like the must read thing every Monday morning, what used to be his MMQB column. But he had a stat, this was like circa 2021, 2022, that at that moment in time, the Giants and Jets were tied for the worst record in the NFL from 2017 to that point. So, I mean, they have been awful for a long time. Like, this isn't new. This isn't recent. This isn't just like, man, this season is super duper embarrassing, but it's like a one-off. This is like normal for them at this point in time. It's crazy when you think about like how bad they've been. So they obviously won, a lot of games, relatively speaking, in 2022, won the playoff game. But do you know, so in that season, they finished in 22. Goodness, where is it?
Like 10
they still were 9-7-1. They had the tie with Washington. So they still didn't win double-digit games. Do you know how many double-digit win seasons they've had since, since counting 2007, the first Super Bowl year?
I think it said last week since 2013 they've had 2. So beyond that, like 4 total then?
That's actually not true. Since 2013 they've had 1 double-digit win season.
Oh, wow.
And it was 2016, the infamous boat picture when they lost in the wild card round. Counting the 2007 season, they have had 4 double-digit win seasons in 2017. 2
winning seasons since 2013. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
I think you're right. Because of the 22 year, but they were 9-7-1. So in 07 they were 10-6 and were a wild card because the Cowboys were the 1 seed and they won the Super Bowl. In 2008 they were the 1 seed at 12-4 and lost, and nobody ever brings that up. Nobody ever gave them grief for being the defending champions and losing at home as the 1 seed. I believe to the Eagles, who lost the NFC Championship game that year. But 12-4. In 2010 they went 10-6 and actually missed the playoffs, which is funny given the events of the last decade and a half. And then in 2011 they won the Super Bowl, but also as a wild card team. No, they won the division, but they were 9-7. So yeah, it has been tough, dude. I mean, like beyond tough, to say the least.
This is an old take by me, but like I feel so vindicated by this wilderness stretch they're in, from a standpoint of, I always said those Super Bowls, especially the second one, like even more so the second one, were just fluky and not indicative of this organization knows what they're doing and is building sustained success. That doesn't mean the Super Bowls don't count. They obviously do. But my point was, like, this isn't a celebration of like competency and greatness. It's a celebration of just like, they got hot at the right time. And again, that's fine. It still counts all the same, But my point was, like, I'm not worried about the Giants being this great team in the future, and I couldn't have predicted them to be this bad, obviously. But I just feel vindicated that those statements were true. That this wasn't, it's like this reflection of a truly great franchise in the NFL, as much as they just got hot.
Reddit Eclipse says at least Daniel Jones stinking in recent weeks has lessened the blow of players magically looking great the second they leave. The Colts are going to win the AFC South, and I don't know if they're going to be the 1 seed. I know we talked about that a little bit, but like, I mean, I don't think like it is a fraction of a big deal that is being made about Daniel Jones looking great for the Colts, as opposed to what was made about Saquon Barkley last year. And in no way to take away Saquon Barkley, that like it should be like 5 times the big deal, like given the positions they play. And some of that is mitigated by the fact that Jackson Dart looks great, but there was also the report on Sunday morning that they're concerned that he needs to alter the way he plays because he's putting himself in harm's way, which I don't think is impossible to deny at this point in time. So, I mean, and that's not relative to his abilities. It's just relative to his play style, but that's a factor, certainly when you consider who he is. Again, my point is like Daniel Jones looks like Daniel Jones is actually such a franchise quarterback now that the Colts said we're willing to trade significant draft capital in the short-term future to go get Sauce Gardner, and we are very clearly going to build around you, Daniel Jones. That should be like the Giants should be getting dragged for that, and they're not, and some of it is just because it's Daniel Jones.
So on Jackson Dart.
I agree with, by the way, with Eagles Grow that Saquon got the Hard Knocks bump. Yeah, it was the quote that really like kind of made that a story. I agree with that, certainly.
For sure. I was just looking this stat up recently, not even on purpose, but just came across this where I looked up PFF's allowed pressure, and I looked up how much of they have like percentage of dropbacks with some responsibility. So these are the percentage of dropbacks where Jackson Dart is responsible for allowing pressure on that play. They have him charted at 42.1%. So for perspective, the next closest quarterback is Lamar Jackson at 29.8. That's a huge difference.
Lamar can do that because of his play style. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it becomes a weapon for Lamar in that respect.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying it's not even necessarily an inherently negative or flawed stat. Although when it's to that degree, it is. Because like the difference between Jackson Dart there at number 1 and Lamar at number 2 is the same difference between Lamar at number 2 and I'm looking down here to like 17. Bryce Young. That's crazy. That's a crazy difference. Anyway, we've all seen that anyway. I'm not breaking news, but just to put the recklessness in perspective.
Also notes the Abdul Carter story. So the story for anyone who missed it is he was benched for allegedly being late or missing a team meeting,
sleeping through a meeting,
and reportedly he came out, and normally when something like that happens, like to use the CD and George Pickens thing, like their punishment happens, and then after the game they're like, hey, we're not talking about it, like they just accept it and move on. Abdul Carter was like, nope, that did not happen. It was like, so it's a little awkward. They are very, very, very dramatically in need of someone just being an adult, being a leader in the room. Like they have not had that in a very long time. And they have these personalities. They're going to overrun whoever the head coach is, and they're going to be in the same cycle all over again.
Well, speaking of needing a leader, I was looking at Big Blue View and I saw an article about 6 early candidates for the Giants head coaching job. This comes from Jay Glazer. So this isn't, just speculating here. This is like sourced information. Did you happen to see this list?
I did not.
Okay, let me read you the names. Mike McCarthy, number 1.
I've advocated for that in a real way.
Yeah, in a way that you think that helps the Giants compete for a Super Bowl. Matt Nagy, not a great one to me. Currently the Chiefs offensive coordinator. Lou Anarumo, who one of the better defensive coordinators, I would say, in the NFL, but is he a head coach? I don't know. Steve Spagnuolo, who
has Giants ties, was the Giants defensive coordinator. I don't think for the second one. Maybe he was for the second one, but he obviously was for the first that shut down the perfect.
And interim head coach too there.
Right.
I think it was after Shermer got fired.
He was the head coach for the Rams. Is that right?
Or maybe it was McAdoo. Yes, he was the head coach of the Rams, and that went terribly. And then we have Arthur Smith. Why is Arthur Smith on this list? Like, what are we doing? Like, I would love if the Giants hired Arthur Smith. Are you kidding me? Why is he on here? And then Chris Shula, who I think that would actually be the best candidate from this list for them. I don't know if he's going to be a good coach, but he seems like he could be an up-and-comer. I think that would be from those candidates. I would definitely want to hire Chris Shula, which I should note that Glazer seemed to say that like Shula's name is, quote, starting to really pop up, end quote. So something to keep an eye
on. Let's pick these games while we're at. I believe Washington's on bye this week, and then we can get to Cowboys Eagles. So the Giants are in Detroit, and they are 10.5-point favorites. I'm sorry, underdogs. The Giants are. I think this is Detroit, Washington. This is going to try to win 2 games at once. I will happily lay the points.
100% agree. Do we know, is Dart back yet? Is he still in the concussion protocol, I imagine? I'm guessing he might be back.
Yeah, I don't know if he's back. I think, though...
he did return to practice. So,
but just like if we're playing the real-life game and understanding the way that teams operate, like this is now no longer just like a normal concussion, given the attention that the whole story's gotten. So I would not be surprised if they lean towards the side of caution.
Absolutely, they should.
Right. So I would bet it's Jameis, which would be fun. The Jameis-led Giants beating the Lions on the Sunday before Thanksgiving would be hilarious. I'm totally here for it. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Maybe they'll cover. They did cover this past week with Jameis. I will say that. The Giants, I love that. I love that. Giants plus 7.5. They did cover just the half point, but they did cover. So not impossible that they cover, but I agree. I will take the Lions, who should be getting a little bit healthier here. Lions
the
win.
Eagles are in Dallas this week, Arlington, and getting 3.5 points as the road team. I saw some comments about this early on. I saw this in the game notes from the Cowboys PR staff. The Eagles are wearing Kelly green, and I believe that this is since they brought it back into like regular rotation, the first time they're doing it on the road. And aesthetically, this is a great game. They wore the Kelly green at home against Dallas in the Kenny Pickett game. So I'm all for this. I think it's going to look outstanding.
Yeah, but that was also like outside. It was a 1:00 game, so just like the lighting is different too. I think it's going to look good in this, like the stadium lighting specifically there. So interested to see that look. The Eagles, as you said, undefeated in their Kelly greens, but man, it's so weird predicting their games right now because I don't want to doubt the defense. Like the defense has earned all of the possible benefit of the doubt in the world right now. Like I trust that defense, even though they're going up against the Cowboys offense that is potent and obviously gave them problems back in week 1. Now, again, Eagles did not have Jalen Phillips back then. They didn't have Brandon Graham back then. They didn't have Nakobe Dean back then. They didn't have Jalen Carter for the game because he's fit on Dak Prescott. So I trust this defense certainly more than I did back then. Still have a big weakness at cornerback. Dory Jackson had a good game against the Lions. The Eagles have done some things where they've tried to hide him a little bit more, and that has helped. But still is a player who can be had, and just a really tough matchup for him, whether he's going up against either CD or George Pickens there. So that's something to watch. I really just don't trust this. I hate this offense so much. I just really, and that was a big reason I picked the Lions to win last week. And I feel good about like that part of it, right? Like I don't regret saying that I doubted the Eagles because of the offense. It's just that I didn't put enough faith in the defense. So maybe I'm guilty of doing it again here. I will say the Cowboys win the game. So I'm going to take the plus 3.5. It's also just that like the Eagles don't sweep the Cowboys. Like that doesn't happen. It happened last year, but Dak wasn't playing. And then it happened previously. I think it was 2011 before that. So Tony Romo was in both of those games. But like, it just doesn't, it rarely happens where the Eagles end up sweeping the Cowboys. Cowboys are coming off short rest, so maybe I'm not weighing that enough. But this offense, I just don't trust it. And I just think that it could be a tough time for them trying to, even if the Eagles defense plays great, I think it's possible the Cowboys put up, let's say 21 points. 20 points. Can the Eagles get there? I don't know right now. They can barely score at all. Maybe last thing I'll say is that I'm not optimistic from a standpoint of the weather at some level was a factor in the past 2 games. Now they're in a dome. Maybe that helps a lot. But unless the Cowboys keep it open, I guess. I'm guessing they're not going to do that. And maybe the sun gets in their eyes. That could be a factor, right?
This is that window, but we have already fallen back. So that does... Okay. It doesn't have as long lasting of an effect, just given the time of year in that sense. Yeah.
So I'm going to say Cowboys win a close one. And even if they lose, I think it'll still be a close one. So I like taking the points plus 3.5, which Opened at 3.5. Eagles favored on the road.
Now.
Went to 4.5 before the Monday night game. I saw that on like Monday during the day, and then dropped back down to 3.5 after Monday night's game.
So DH, I don't know who this is. I don't know if it's David Howman, one of our staffers that belong on the boys, but I'm not certain. But it says boys get 6 field goals and the W. I agree that would almost be enough. I mean, it would have been enough last week. I'm taking the Cowboys, so certainly taking the points. So I do think the Cowboys
against the Eagles almost all year.
That's not totally. I wish I had kept tabs. I think it is 50-50, but
you're bad against them with the spread at least.
It is a variety of factors. It's like generally I will trust great offense versus great defense, like whoever the teams are. Like I like that I recognize it's not a perfect science, but I like that. You
That's
didn't
how the
mention
NFL is like structured.
Right. You didn't mention this. We haven't talked about it, but Lane Johnson being out is significant. And that's maybe the biggest factor for me. Is that the Cowboys defense is now like just moderately bad. But I do think, not that it's a direct, matchup, but like Quinnen Williams being the rising tide helps that. Donovan Ezuraku's coming on. He didn't get credited for it, but he had the safety last week against the Raiders. I've said before, I went on a long speech a few months ago about how I didn't give Lane Johnson enough credit early in his career. And I've obviously fully have ever since, but he is the Jenga piece for the Eagles. When he's gone, it's not just that they're not elite, they are like awful in a lot of ways without him. And so that's the biggest kind of proponent for me. Also, I really do trust Dak. Dak plays well against the Eagles. I know that you just refuse to accept reality in a lot of senses that way. CD, George Pickens, and George Pickens had not really found himself in the Cowboys offense, obviously because it was week 1, the last time these two teams played. So I like all of those factors. I also think it would be classic Cowboys. I love these hats, by the way. This is not an ad, but everybody should get classic Cowboy hats. Dak Prescott does wear them. It would be the most classic-ist Cowboys to get this win and get their first winning streak in a year and a half and be an even Steven 500 and then beat, I'll even say even beat, a low down on their luck Chiefs team that is not who they have been for the whole Patrick Mahomes era, but to do it on Thanksgiving Day, the most viewed game of the season outside of the Super Bowl, get north of 500, and then the hype train is just really, 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 I've been saying this, and then go get like destroyed by Detroit. And then like the conversation would be the Cowboys just beat the two teams that were in the Super Bowl last year. Like you can completely see this. I know you can. We all can. And I also think that I didn't see John Stolness, BGNer, who I love, tweeted at me a couple of weeks ago after the Eagles-Packers game. And I said, look, I was like tweeting in general that an Eagles win was better for the Cowboys. And we discussed this. And he was agreeing with me, like from my vantage point, but said that if it were up to him and he had to pick one game for the Eagles to lose of their next 3, starting at that Green Bay game, he said, I would rather it be the Dallas game. He was like, because they're not a real threat to the division, and the hypothetical wins against Green Bay and Detroit, which they did get now, were more important relative to other, endeavors. So I think the totality of all of those things just lends to the Cowboys getting the win here. So I will certainly take the points.
I also say Cam Jurgens, we don't know yet if he'll be able to play. We're yet to see his
That's the
status.
Quinnen Williams factor.
Yeah. Because he left the game early in week 11 and had come back from injury. So TBD on that one. But yeah, if you're without Cam Jurgens and Lane Johnson, not to say they can't win, but certainly tough.
And I do think I saw one comment a moment ago that said if the Eagles lose, it will be a long week. This is also like where the Eagles are at in their point in the season, is that
it won't be a long week because they play again on Friday.
That's true, but long metaphorical week. But like it would make for like my perception is the last few weeks the culture vibe has been like they're on a losing streak, which is obviously not the case.
Yes.
But if they were to lose to the Cowboys, and then again, I always think of stats when we make up things to make them sound better, but like to be the first loss in the Kelly Green, like you can just see like the rabidness coming out and being like, see, everything sucks, like you just lost and whatever. And then like having some people be like, dude, they're 8-3 and then whatever. And then setting up a big game against the Bears. They'll probably win anyway.
I mean, there is a thing there where it's like, if they're not winning because of how they play, then what do you do? Like, there's nothing to hang your hat on.
Yeah, no,
right?
I agree with that.
So like, you better win. And they do win a lot. So it might get away with it. But it's like, if you don't, that's when things start to just get real frustrating real fast. I know like losing everywhere starts to feel that way. But it's like, if the offense looked great, they lost the game. It's like, okay, well, that sucks, but I'm still hopeful about this, as opposed to like the whole thing you're hanging your hat on is just like, oh, it doesn't matter how it looks because you won.
I didn't say this in my like reasons for picking the Cowboys, but I have said it in recent weeks on some videos I've done. And you and I agreed when we back in May when we picked the schedule. I don't remember the sequence, but we had these two teams splitting the series. Whichever one you think they were going to win. And not that that's like a perfect way to deduce an opinion or a prediction here, but the Eagles won the first one. So like to your point of like they don't. It's hard to sweep, but I think that's true for any division rivalry. But following that trend, following that silly logic, it just suggests the Cowboys are going to get this win. Mm-hmm. And the quick week for Dallas getting ready to host Kansas City will be, and like, again, I'm just like, I can see all the headlines. I don't know if you know this. I actually told Gina in my meeting with her earlier, Thanksgiving is Patrick Mahomes' first start at AT&T Stadium, because when the Chiefs last visited, it was his rookie year when Alex Smith was still playing. So like, it would be this like massive headline that Patrick Mahomes has never won in, AT&T Stadium. He's this Dallas guy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I think the Cowboys, they're magnets for those types of headlines because that's all that matters to them. And that's what they're going to pick up. So
one more NFC East note as we have NFC East Hard Knocks dropping soon. There was the trailer that came out today. When is that date?
December 2nd is when it premieres.
Very entirely realistic chance that the Eagles have the division clinched by the time that comes out. Which, by the way, I don't think the Eagles can clinch. I previously said last week the Eagles can clinch on Thanksgiving with the Cowboys lost. Obviously, that can't happen now with the Raiders losing, but also I don't think it could have happened anyway. Again, more so because of the Commanders element, though. I was kind of discounting that. But again, obviously, you're not really feeling like they're probably going to win out. So, yeah, Eagles win, again, would be very big for the standpoint of dropping that magic number down to 2. Then the Cowboys play the Chiefs on Thanksgiving. So then at that point, if the Cowboys lose, and then it comes up to the Eagles with, again, unless I'm miscalculating the Commanders part of it wrong, I guess the Eagles could clinch then by beating the Bears on Black Friday. Or if not, it would be like the Eagles just need one more Commanders loss at that point, which, probably.
I know this is like stating the obvious, but if this went, I can't say chalk, but if the Cowboys won, like you and I both think, and then I think you also agree it's not impossible to see them beating the Chiefs on Thanksgiving. So if those two things,
I don't like that.
Well, I know.
I don't love that.
My point is that like the Chiefs are way more gettable than they've been in years past. Like you agree with that?
Sure. Well, I mean, almost no. Look at where they are in DVOA. They're like really good.
But if that happened, and then the Eagles did lose to the Bears, who are a team that we all kind of feel is like a bit of a paper tiger type thing.
Yeah,
like,
they have a negative point differential.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna throw this stuff out, then we got to throw out how Philly's been getting outgained like every single week.
Oh yeah, whatever. I mean, I've said that.
My point is like, again, I'm stating the obvious. Oh, if the Cowboys win all their games and the Eagles lose all their games, but like that would make what would be week 14 incredible theater to just watch as Eagles fans are like twisting and twirling. So I hope that happens.
The Cowboys need this win. I think more is something that should also be said, not only just from like obviously the division is probably lost, but just I mean they're in the hunt. Absolutely, I do think that's fair to say. Like looking at the other teams where they are in the NFC, but like it's not just. I know you've talked about them probably needing to get to 9 wins. It's not just about that. It's also that they have 1, 2, 3 or we have 1, 2, only 2 teams ahead of them in terms of actually being able to qualify for the playoffs. But it's
2 teams between the 7th seed and them. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yeah. The Lions.
Those teams are the Lions and the Panthers.
Lions and the Panthers. And then the Vikings are still kind of hanging around. I don't feel great about them, but they're still there as well. So, but my point is, even the Cowboys could get to 9 wins, and it might just not be enough. Because the 49ers are already at 7 wins there in the 7th spot.
And they have lost to the Panthers. Again, they have the tie, but they do play the Lions, so they do have that chance to double dip, so to speak.
And if they do tie, then that tiebreaker would come into effect. So, so they need the point being, Cowboys really need this win for the sake of getting back into the playoff picture.
Let's do some songs, and then let's chunk deuces. Are you ready?
My song is by Rage Against the Machine, Bomb Track. Felt like we had to add a bomb track to the playlist. So what better way to do it than I struggled with my song this week. I was thinking a lot of different options. There wasn't an obvious contender, but been listening to some Rage Against the Machine and a lot of good picks. You could have went with Killing in the Name, but I tried to keep it a little bit more clean on the language front, not go quite as explicit, which is pretty explicit, Killing in the Name of in that song. So I went with Bomb Track.
Even bomb is kind of an explicit thing, like,
Yeah, but this is like bomb, No,
but I'm saying cool. Like you can't say bomb on an airplane. You know what I mean? Like Meet the Parents.
Yeah, it's not a good idea.
Okay, that's a good pick. My pick, I often pick songs inspired by my son. My mom was watching him the other day, and my mom's already put up all of her Christmas decorations at the house for
Rachel would really be mad. She is very much like, you cannot do this.
My dad is indifferent about it. Like he's just walking around.
I'm also indifferent.
But she really wanted it up, and some of it was for my son, like to be able to just kind of see everything. And
my rule would be you can't do it before Halloween. Like that should be obvious, but you literally
it was definitely after Halloween. But
okay,
I mean, I think the hard rule is before like the conventional rules before Thanksgiving. You want to throw stuff up
but you should be arrested if you do it before Halloween.
Yeah, if you want to put it on while the Bears are beating the Eagles, go for it. Like that's pretty normal. But before then is a little touch and go. But so her stuff is up, and so she was watching him the other day. And I don't know, I was out, but I don't know what they were doing. And she all of a sudden put on Christmas music. So she went even further, like not just having the decorations out, she put on Christmas music. And my son, his birthday party is on Saturday, so we're very excited. And his birthday is actually next Monday. So happy early birthday to my son. He'll be 4 years old the next time we do a mixtape, which will be next Tuesday. And when you're that age, you hear a song and it's like the only song you ever want to listen to. And so I have heard from Brenda Lee rocking around the Christmas tree like 500 times in the last 48 hours. So the entire mixology universe is going to be exposed to it as well.
Adding a Christmas song to the playlist?
I mean, it's what's going on
before Christmas?
I mean,
Again, I don't care. Rachel would
I think we have Christmas songs on there. I'm pretty certain Rachel had one.
So. Yeah, we should. Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
So, okay, Brandon, as we leave, who do you think will go home on Survivor tonight?
Oh man. Well, one more thing about Christmas. Rachel actually is going to be taking down her Christmas tree before we even go to visit both of our parents separately on so I guess like the 23rd, because she doesn't want to up.
She already got this planned.
She doesn't want it. Yes, she doesn't want to up after Christmas at all. Like it's not. I think she usually takes it down.
There's like a rule about that, or like a tradition, like it's like January 9th or something. So
but no, she is like Christmas night. It's done, but we're not going to be there for that. So she is preemptively just like it's done anyway. Let's say. What's the question? Is there a question?
But yeah, who's gonna be voted off of Survivor? Night?
I don't want to get into it in case it's. What do you think? I don't want to spoil it for people because I've been really behind. I'm caught up currently, but like most of the season I've spent behind. A lot of weeks I'm catching up, so I imagine that other people are too.
I will say I will shift questions or subjects entirely and just say I started Pluribus, the new. Speaking of Breaking Bad, Vince
you mentioned that last week. I think my dad was talking about that with me. That you had mentioned that.
It is. I don't want to explain what it's about to anyone in case they haven't started it, because there's only 3 episodes. Like it's early enough that you can get in. I highly recommend it. And I flew to Arizona over the weekend. I went to the ASU game with my dad, and it was awesome. But on the plane, I read the first half of Project Hail Mary. I haven't read it before. And do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Did you see The Martian with goodness gracious. Man, what is his name? I'm blanking on man, what is his name? This is embarrassing.
I don't know.
With Matt Damon. My goodness gracious. The Martian, the movie with Matt Damon. Have you seen this movie before?
No.
Thank you, Eagles Girl 52.
I know Marvin the Martian.
It's a movie
like from Looney Tunes.
It's a movie that's based on a book written by Andy Weir. The book is The Martian, and he also wrote this book called Project Hail Mary. These are fictional books, but this book is becoming a movie, and like it's not like in development. Like they already have released trailers. Like Ryan Gosling plays the lead guy, and Eagles Girl's right. There's our poop potatoes in The Martian. If that's an encouragement for you to check it out, But anyway, Project Hail Mary is awesome. I'm like halfway through, and I really, really like it, and I think people should read it. That's my
once again
statement.
Check out Bleeding Green Nation and Blogging the Boys this week as we preview the game more and have the interplay with the different sites. It's literally what I'm going to go do after we hop off here. I'm going to work on that article to get posted for Blogging the Boys, and then we'll get yours up at bleedinggreennation.com. So they're not up yet, but shouldn't be too much longer before you can go and hop on the sites, and we'll be in there too. That's the other part of it. Like, we're not just like, hey, go comment, and we're not participating. No, we will be participating as well.
Okay, as we leave, you can pick one, but your favorite thing about, since it was brought up, poop or potatoes?
I don't really like the combination of those things for sure. I will say I love a smashed potato. I need more smashed potatoes in my life. Are you familiar with the concept?
As opposed to mashing these and putting awesome stuff in them? Like,
so you parboil them, and then you like smash them down, and then you put them in the oven to bake, so then they get like crispy at that point. So you kind of get the best of both worlds with a little bit of that softer inside texture, but then you get like the crispy edges, and it's a great time.
I don't really like mashed potatoes. Like, as I've gotten older,
I like smashed potatoes better than mashed potatoes for sure.
I definitely don't like when they're like super soupy, like when people put milk in them and stuff. Like, I recognize that's a Thanksgiving thing and fine, and we're getting close, but give me a baked potato all day, or like russet potatoes, like something like that. Like, I'd much prefer.
What about twice baked potato?
I'm okay with that. Obviously, French fries, any fried version, I'm good with. But yeah, on the subject of Thanksgiving foods, next week, I believe we said this Tuesday for the mixtape next week with the Thanksgiving game and stuff. So, and Brandon will tell you all the things he's thankful for. He'll make a whole list.
Sounds great.